My name is Charlotte. I married Mickey at 25, after meeting him at a party. Mickey had always assured me, you can be a stay-at-home wife if you want, and indeed, his income alone was sufficient for us to live comfortably. Despite this, I was passionate about my job and continued working at the company that had supported me since high school. However, in the second year of our marriage, I decided to resign from my job. The catalyst was a phone call from my father-in-law informing me that my mother-in-law had collapsed. I had always cherished my gentle and kind mother-in-law. When I rushed to her side, as Mickey couldn't be there due to work, she greeted me with a frail smile, connected to numerous tubes. Though her condition wasn't life-threatening, she required ongoing care. We needed to determine who would look after her before her discharge. I initially thought Angelina, my unmarried sister-in-law who lived with her parents, would step up, but she adamantly refused. Angelina, who primarily works from home, told the hospitalized mother-in-law, I'm not just sitting around at home, I can't take care of Mom, get better soon. I was stunned by her callousness, especially given that her own mother was in distress. Then, Angelina, unwilling to care for our mother-in-law, called Mickey and requested a meeting at the in-laws' house. The meeting, attended by father-in-law, Angelina, and us, was intended to discuss the caregiving situation. I really can't take care of Mom. What about the housework now that my wife is incapacitated? Angelina kept insisting. Father-in-law, who had relied on mother-in-law for all household tasks, showed no inclination to take on her care himself. Mickey tried to persuade Angelina to help, but she was resolute in her refusal. It became clear that the meeting's outcome was a foregone conclusion. Angelina and father-in-law were indirectly implying that I should take over the care of mother-in-law. Though I had a deep attachment to my job, I was unwilling to endure another meeting where the responsibility for mother-in-law's care was being shifted around. So, I made a decision and said, I understand. I'll resign from my job and take care of mother-in-law. We'll be living together from now on, so please support me. Father-in-law expressed his gratitude with, thank you, Charlotte, while Angelina remained visibly displeased. Mickey asked, are you sure? If it becomes too much, we can hire a professional. I replied, it's okay. I felt a strong sense of obligation to mother-in-law, and I believed that having a family member care for her would be better than hiring a professional, despite the financial cost and her potential reluctance. I knew father-in-law tended to avoid conflict and that Angelina had a rather unkind nature. The prospect of living with them was daunting, but I committed to the decision, resigned from my job, and moved in with my in-laws. Adjusting to this new life proved more challenging than I had anticipated. Mother-in-law's declining health made even basic tasks difficult, and she often apologized for needing care. It was heart-wrenching to see her in such a state. Angelina's relentless bullying took a significant mental toll on me as the daughter-in-law. Coming from a family with financial struggles and having worked since high school without attending college, I often felt belittled by Angelina. Despite the effort I put into preparing meals and caring for mother-in-law, Angelina frequently mocked my education. She would say things like, oh, sorry Charlotte, this conversation might be too advanced for a high school graduate, I shouldn't have brought it up. Or she would confront me directly, saying, you're just a lowly high school graduate daughter-in-law, so it's expected that you handle everything for Mom. Mother-in-law, despite her frail condition, would reprimand Angelina, saying, don't speak to Charlotte that way. Anger seemed to fuel Angelina's disdain, and after being scolded, she would criticize me behind mother-in-law's back. I have a respectable job at home, so it's only fitting that Charlotte, with her limited education, handles the housework. Sometimes, she could at least make the food taste better. It's always so terrible. When Angelina, who had little understanding of housework, criticized my cooking, I was tempted to refuse to serve her, but I restrained myself. She would also find fault with minor cleanliness issues, loudly declaring, a trashy daughter-in-law can't even keep things clean, there's so much garbage everywhere. Yet, I held my tongue. I was determined to keep the discord between Angelina and me from affecting mother-in-law's well-being. To protect her, I lied when she asked, are they treating you badly? With a smile, responding, I'm fine. I maintained this facade even when father-in-law asked if I was overworking myself, telling him the same untruth, I'm fine. I didn't want to burden Mickey, who was already stressed with his demanding job, with our family issues. Father-in-law seemed indifferent to my mistreatment, focusing solely on finding someone to handle household chores. For the sake of mother-in-law, and to support Mickey, I persevered through a year of hardship. Then, mother-in-law passed away peacefully in her sleep. In the midst of my shock and grief, Angelina cried out, "Mama died because you didn't take proper care of her. You're such a useless, trashy daughter-in-law." Despite my efforts to care for mother-in-law, I was haunted by the thought that her death might be due to my shortcomings. During the funeral service, I felt like a hollow shell, lost in a daze of sorrow and self-blame. Mickey was always thoughtful, but Angelina constantly undermined me when he wasn't around, sneering, "You're really useless." After the funeral service for mother-in-law, I felt there was no longer a reason to stay with my in-laws. Standing alone in my suit, looking at mother-in-law's empty bed, father-in-law approached me with a desperate plea. "Please, Charlotte, now that my wife is gone, I need you to continue living with us." It was clear that father-in-law couldn't manage housework, and I couldn't see Angelina stepping up either. It seemed he wanted me to stay on as a housekeeper. I was taken aback, particularly by the audacity of his request immediately following mother-in-law's funeral. I thought, this man is entirely self-serving, but I didn't give an answer right away. I needed to discuss it with Mickey first, despite father-in-law's urgent pleas, saying, "Please, I beg you." I only told him I would talk it over with Mickey, and the conversation ended unresolved. A few days later, Mickey said, "Charlotte, now that Mom has passed, there's no need for us to stay here any longer. Let's move out and live just the two of us. You've been through so much." I agreed with Mickey. Without mother-in-law, there was no reason to continue living with Angelina, who constantly belittled me, and father-in-law, who seemed to see me merely as a housekeeper. Grateful for Mickey's support, we decided to leave my in-laws' house. However, Angelina had other plans. "What? You can't just leave. It's so heartless to talk about leaving right after Mom's gone." When Mickey and I informed Angelina and father-in-law of our intention to move out, Angelina's reaction was explosive. "It's not heartless. Charlotte took excellent care of Mom. She deserves to be free now. Finding a job with her education level is nearly impossible. If she can't contribute to society, she should at least be useful here to Dad and me. Charlotte was outstanding at her job. You have no right to speak to her like that." "Neither Mickey nor Charlotte is going anywhere," Angelina declared. After storming out, the discussion was abruptly ended. Mickey said, "We'll just leave on our own," and began searching for a new place. I started preparing for the move, finding properties, packing up, and minimizing our belongings. Angelina, however, was constantly interfering. As I organized our things, she would scatter them and yell, "Heartless person, I won't let you leave this house." When I called real estate agents, she would grab my phone and tell them, "Forget this conversation ever happened." Her behavior became increasingly erratic. Mickey would get frustrated and argue with her, but she would retaliate, shouting, "Your wife is terrible, you don't know how to pick women," and nothing would improve. One evening during dinner, when both Mickey and I were at our breaking point, Angelina, unusually cheerful, called out to me, "Charlotte, my fiancé is coming over tomorrow. I know you're not much use, but try to be a little less brainless, okay?" I was accustomed to Angelina's harsh words when Mickey wasn't around, but hearing her mention a fiancé surprised me. I knew it was rude, but I couldn't help but wonder why anyone would want to marry someone like her. After being scolded repeatedly during dinner, I responded vaguely and carried on with my usual housework. The next day, Angelina appeared more stylish than ever and introduced her fiancé, Randolph. He was dressed in a sharp suit, polite, and seemed intelligent. I couldn't understand why such a decent man would want to marry Angelina. As I prepared drinks and made my way to the living room, I overheard Angelina's voice. "That woman over there is Mickey's wife. She's completely useless. I handle all the housework and took care of Mom before she passed away. If it weren't for her, Mom might have lived longer." I was stunned, feeling as if I'd been struck by her words. The realization of how unfairly I'd been treated hit me hard. I had been doing all the housework and caring for mother-in-law, while Angelina contributed nothing. Quietly, I opened the living room door, served the drinks, and greeted Randolph with a forced smile. "Hello, as Angelina has said, I'm the high school graduate, the so-called useless trash. Nice to meet you." Angelina's face turned pale with shock, but I continued smoothly. Angelina is very thorough in her guidance. She always says my cooking is tasteless and mocks me while I clean, calling me trash, cleaning up trash. She also blamed me for mother-in-law's early death. What are you talking about? Angelina, furious, tried to interrupt, but I pointed at her and said, "See, this is how she guides me." Angelina yanked at my hair and yelled, "Stop it." Randolph looked bewildered, clearly unprepared for this side of Angelina. His confusion was evident, and I felt a pang of sympathy for him. Maybe this would give him pause about marrying Angelina. I mentally excused myself for the chaos I had caused, feeling a sense of vindication. "Well then, the trash will be leaving now," I said, grabbing only my valuables and walking out of my in-laws' house. Father-in-law, eager to avoid conflict, remained silent during my departure. Seeing Angelina's furious outburst and Randolph's attempt to calm her was oddly satisfying. I took refuge at my parents' house. When I explained everything to them, they were shocked by Angelina's behavior and father-in-law's indifference. They reassured me, saying, "From now on, do whatever makes you happy, Charlotte." As I settled into the comfort of my parents' home, Mickey came over that night. Mickey had returned home to find Angelina blaming me for everything. After a chaotic scene, Mickey learned from father-in-law that I had left and came to see me, despite being exhausted from work. "We should have moved out sooner," Mickey said with regret. "I knew my sister and father were making your life miserable, and I'm sorry I didn't step in sooner. From now on, I promise to protect you. I want you to stay with me as my wife forever." "Mickey, you've always tried to protect me. I'm sorry for disrupting Angelina's engagement," I replied. Even though Angelina is Mickey's sister, he embraced me, repeating, "Charlotte, you did nothing wrong." I stayed with my parents while Mickey moved our belongings. Soon after, we found a new place, moved in, and began our peaceful life together. We blocked all calls from Angelina and father-in-law. According to Mickey, Angelina's engagement was called off. Randolph was overwhelmed by Angelina's erratic behavior and decided to reconsider marriage, eventually going silent. Angelina continued to blame me, shouting at Mickey, "It's your wife's fault." Mickey responded calmly, "Charlotte only spoke the truth." Father-in-law, now without a housekeeper, pleaded with Mickey, "Can you bring Charlotte back?" Mickey firmly replied, "I'm cutting ties with this house," and left. A few months after leaving, I discovered I was pregnant. When I told Mickey, he was overjoyed. He decided to change jobs, saying, "I can't raise our child with my current job." Mickey's commitment to protecting me was evident in his decision to find a new job. We haven't informed the in-laws about the pregnancy, as I doubt their attitudes would change. Now, with my growing belly, Mickey and I are eagerly anticipating the arrival of our child and enjoying our life together day by day.